Hi, welcome to Rhythm and Word. My name is Nancy Benson-Nicole, and I'm delighted to serve as Associate Pastor for Caring Ministries and Spiritual Formation at Fourth Presbyterian Church in Chicago. For the next 4 weeks, we will be journeying together, rooted in the first chapter and the first 18 verses of the book of Ruth in the Old Testament, otherwise known as the Hebrew Scriptures. And we're going to consider what this particular portion of Ruth's story has to do with challah bread. If that sounds wacky yet intriguing to you, I encourage you to stay tuned for all 4 of our sessions together as we learn how what shapes and weaves us together and forms us and nourishes us, just like a good loaf of challah bread, is what we can glean from looking at how family and relationships are forged, and gives us really good food for thought, if you will, along the way. We conclude our exploration of the first 18 verses of the first chapter of the book of Ruth with verse 18. Listen now for God's word. When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said to her, "No more." Here ends the reading. I began this series talking about the elements of what makes a good loaf of challah bread. I talked about the recipe, I talked about the ingredients, and I talked about the process of separating the proofed dough into distinct pieces that are then shaped into ropes and then braided back together. I talked about how that was my favorite part of baking loaves of challah bread with my grandmother. And I talked about how in the tradition of Ashkenazi Jews who brought us challah, that what made that type of bread distinct is that in its process, a portion of that dough is set aside to celebrate the tradition that's recorded in the Torah of Moses being instructed by the Lord to set aside dough to be dedicated to the priests. And I was motivated by the image and the process of challah bread as we consider the plight of Naomi and her family having to leave Bethlehem, the land of bread, as it translates in the Hebrew, from a situation of famine, which was hugely disruptive in her life, to forge new family, and then to have to be disrupted again. And in that process of disruption, being formed and forged by what bound her in relationship with new family, with her daughter-in-law, Ruth. The forces that shaped Ruth, including Ruth's determination, rooted in a loyalty that stemmed from her fierce sense of love, a healthy and life-giving love and commitment to forge family with Naomi as they journeyed into a new life back in Naomi's homeland. We see these threads woven together that tell a story of love and loyalty, new life, and formation that would nurture and nourish their lives, and whose lineage, as it would turn out, would create the forebears of Jesus. We have the great, 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 and beyond grandmother of Jesus that's forged in a lineage that Ruth would come to find in this new land, helped by the relationship, as we will learn in chapters 2 through 4 of the book of Ruth, that opportunity to create new family happened because of this journey that they experienced together. You see, the disruption that shaped their lives, the ties that bound them into forging a new sense of family, the fierce determination that characterized Ruth, that compelled her to say, despite what you would want me to do, Naomi, despite how in your bitterness you would want me to go and live life away from you, despite the fact that you think that you are not worthy of my love and my presence in your life, I am determined to be family with you and for you together. It's what then sets them apart. Just as a portion of the dough is set aside and consecrated, Ruth and Naomi and their experience would be consecrated and set aside to create new possibilities for them and ultimately for us, as all of those circumstances come together to eventually, thousands of years later, give us our Christ. It's so interesting to contemplate the strands of our lives that we may at first blush be tempted just to dismiss out of hand, of just being disruptive for the sake of being a problem, just presenting us with challenges for the sake of things just never going as we'd wish that they would go. We have an opportunity, and in fact, an invitation that's given to us so many times throughout the scriptures to be able to envision what shapes us in different ways, where we could see the strands of a purpose forming and forging us into new possibilities for being in relationship to one another, and ultimately for how we are in relationship with ourselves. I take that away, ultimately, from this introduction to the story of Ruth and Naomi and Orpah, Mahlon and Chilion and Elimelech, and all those who would come after in the book of Ruth. I'm inspired to continue to consider what shapes me, and beyond me, what shapes us. However, I understand myself to be in relationship to us, be it in the context of church or country or community, or ultimately the world. How we are shaped and formed and forged by just the nature of existence. How we can find a sense of purpose grounded by loyalty or determination, ultimately in love. This is what we're invited to reflect on and to taste and see. That indeed, the Lord is good, and happy are all of us. Happy are we who find health and strength in the Lord. Thank you so much for journeying with me throughout these 4 weeks of our Rhythm and Word time together. I pray that as you continue in your journeys, that you will find a sense of sustenance and hope and strength. And even more so, that you will be open to the possibility of being that for all whom you encounter as well. Be of good cheer.